Inside Out 2 is the latest Pixar film, so let's rank all 28 Pixar movies from worst to best. Hey everybody, my name's Justin. Here I try to watch everything that hits theaters and on streaming services. If you guys are like me, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and click that bell notification for more up and coming content. If you're up to it, leave your Pixar ranking down below. How would you rank all 28 films from Toy Story all the way to Inside Out 2? Coming in last place is Cars 2. Cars 2 took one of my least favorite characters in the Cars franchise and gave him a lot more to do. It has a complete different tone shift from the first film. Where that first film felt a little more grounded, this second film tries to up its action and its story, and it just does not work. It doesn't feel like it's a story even connected to that first Cars movie. The jokes aren't funny. We have more focus on Lightning McQueen, who is absolutely obnoxious. There's not much to appreciate when it comes to the story of Cars 2, having this spy genre that just feels really out of place when it comes to the previous Cars movie. Coming at number 27, Turning Red. I know there is a certain audience for Turning Red, and it's just not me. I think the storylines within Turning Red feel like a jumbled mess. It has so many different focuses that you really just can't latch onto one focus. You have this young girl who's dealing with being this panda, and there's metaphors surrounding all of that, and then you have her struggling relationship with her mother and her being a teenager. There's a lot that is going on, but it takes these different routes and seems to focus on her and her friends and being this panda, and then exploiting all of that, and then using money to buy tickets for a concert. But then you have this storyline that's also developing for her mother. It just feels really like disjointed, and there isn't a clear direction, a clear developing storyline for our characters, and it just is a film that I really didn't connect with, and I didn't find it to be all that amusing. Coming in at number 26 is The Good Dinosaur. The problem with The Good Dinosaur is that it's lacking its own identity. It feels like a paint by the numbers film. It feels reminiscent of other movies in different companies. There's not much for The Good Dinosaur that stands out as being memorable. When you think of Pixar, you think of Toy Story, Monsters Inc., The Incredibles, Coco, Inside Out, and you just don't really remember so much of The Good Dinosaur. The jokes are there. I think some of it's pretty funny, and the relationship between Spot and Arlo is pretty adorable, but for the most part, it is a painfully generic movie with not much that feels very original. Coming in at number 25 is Cars. I gotta admit, I'm not the biggest fan of the Cars franchise. I think a lot of the characters are really annoying. The jokes just do not work. The storylines, I'm just not that connected to. And the first film is a decent movie. It's just one I didn't want to watch a lot growing up. And the first Cars movie does a great job of understanding Lightning McQueen and having some development for him, but that's like the only part of the movie that I do like, is when we see Lightning McQueen take a step back to kind of who he is and realize things about himself. That's the best part of the film. Everything else I didn't really find to be all that entertaining. Coming at number 24 is Cars 3. Cars 3 is a huge improvement over Cars 2 and the first Cars movie. It has more of a grounded, mature approach to it. Lightning McQueen is at a certain point in his career where he has to accept younger racers and realize that he's not at the top of his game like he used to be. And I feel like that is a very appropriate story to tell for this franchise. The problem with it all is that it feels very lacking in energy, and you do realize that he has to rise to the challenge once again, and that's all of a decent story, but there's not a lot that feels like it's very energetic or just moving really fast. But on the other side of that all, you do get a lot of personal growth for Lightning McQueen, which I really did like. Coming in at number 23 is Finding Dory. Finding Dory's fine. It is nice to see Marlin and Nemo and Dory once again. The film takes a simple story of Dory trying to find her mother and father and trying to remember things about her past. Having Dory as a side character in Finding Nemo was fine because Marlin was trying to find Nemo and she was along for the ride. So you got smaller amounts of Dory within that movie. There's only so much I can take of Dory within Finding Dory before I want to turn it off and watch something else from Pixar. Coming in number 22 is Brave. I really appreciate the first half of Brave when it focuses on Merida not wanting to be married and having her own story. And then it turns into this storyline with her mother turning into a bear and realizing her relationship with her family. It seems two entirely different stories that they're clashing. I feel like there's no closure to that first storyline, and then you introduce her mother as the bear. It goes in this completely different direction, and that is where the film halts for me, and it does not become as enjoyable. There's no emotional connection to the end of the storyline with her mother being the bear. I love the score in here, the visually stunning film, but it's really like two separate movies for me. And the first one I liked. If they can continue that storyline, I think it would have worked much better. But the second half of the movie is where it completely falls apart. Coming in at number 21 is A Bug's Life. Growing up, I had no interest in watching A Bug's Life. As an adult, I really don't have any interest in watching A Bug's Life. It's one of those films I completely forget about when it comes to Pixar. And I know there's a lot of people that really do like A Bug's Life, but it is a film that I didn't really care much for the characters and the story. All the characters, all the bugs that Flick meets, I didn't really find to be all that funny. They tried really hard to have these jokes. They really just did not land. For the time it was released, I think the animation was really good. It feels a bit outdated now compared to where Pixar is with their animation, and it's really impressive. But A Bug's Life, for me, just lacked likable characters and a fun energy to it. It's a storyline that's pretty simple, a bit drawn out at times, but for me, it's not the most memorable Pixar film. Coming in at number 20 is Monsters University. I like the party vibe of Monsters University. It felt like a more laid back movie. I understood that it wasn't going to be Monsters Inc., but it was fun to see these characters in a younger form, and there was a nice energy to this movie. I thought Monsters University captured college in a fun, exciting way, but also brought new things to the world that the monsters live in. So you explore the ins and outs in college, but from the perspective of monsters. And I thought that was really entertaining, connecting Monsters University and Monsters Inc. I like seeing some of the motivation from Sully and Mike Wazowski, seeing that relationship develop throughout. Monsters University has the right amount of fun and interesting characters, minor characters that worked within here. It's just a blast. Coming in number 19 is Luca. Luca is such a sweet film. I love seeing these characters connect and watching them trying to navigate the world where they have to hide from people. And it's got a beautiful message, beautiful animation to it in a setting that was so welcome, and it has such a fun summer vibe to it. Honestly, the more I watch Luca, the more I appreciate this movie. The first time I watched it, I thought it was fine. And then I've seen it a few times after that, and every time I watch it, I think this is just a sweet Pixar movie. It's nothing grand, it's nothing truly emotional, it's not boring either. It's just right there in the middle. It hits the sweet spot. It is an adorable Pixar movie with likable characters and just an easygoing vibe to it that I absolutely loved. Coming in at number 18, Toy Story 4. Toy Story 4, I honestly did not want to happen. Toy Story 3 ended in such a satisfying way, wrapped up the story for Andy and Woody and Buzz and all the other toys. And it felt like bringing back these characters was just a cash grab. And although it was so nice to see Woody and Buzz and all the other toys once again together, it was nowhere near as good as Toy Story 1, 2, and 3. It was mostly focused on Woody, and it was a very strong storyline for him. So although I do think that this film felt a little unnecessary at times, it was still nice to see some development for Woody in a different light, and seeing him in a new part of his life, I thought was very strong. I'm very curious to see how Toy Story 5 will play out. If they'll do some more storylines like this, or rumored to have Andy want to try to find his toys again so he can give his toys to his children, which I think is honestly very realistic. I have my toys from when I was a kid, and I can't wait for my kids to play with them. So that's a storyline that I would truly welcome. I think would be the right storyline. Minute number 17 is Lightyear. Lightyear was good. I liked the approach to this movie. I think it was very smart to do a Lightyear movie and introduce it as this was the movie that Andy saw as a kid and wanted to get into Buzz Lightyear. Very fun idea for Pixar. And the whole sci-fi time travel aspect to it definitely did work. The problem with this movie, and I could still visually remember seeing it in theaters, is that all of the characters that Buzz Lightyear encounters throughout this film really derail the movie. Buzz Lightyear is a very determined character within this film. He has his mission. He is all about that. And then all the other characters, they get into these mishaps and they derail the story. They cause problems throughout. They slow the storyline down. And that is my biggest problem with Lightyear, is that all these minor characters try to add humor to the film. They try to shake up the storylines and they just ruin it for me. Everything else was really good. I liked Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear. I liked all of the gritty approach to Lightyear within here. And the space adventure definitely did work, and a cool ending to this movie. Just all those minor characters honestly ruined the movie for me. Coming in at number 16 is Elemental. I love the message in Elemental that there is going to be differences amongst all these characters, and there's going to be characters that you fear in this film. They find a connection between the two. You have fire and water that obviously would not match, and they do a great job of making you understand that within this film. And the fire and water characters are very separated throughout this film, and when they are connected, there's a lot of characters that are a bit worried of that. But you have a sweet developing love story that was so beautiful in this film. And anytime I hear the score to Elemental, I'm just immediately relaxed, and it adds so much to the story. And there's a great amount of world building in here. All the different elements and how they are connected, their daily routines, how they work and live together, but also how they are separated and disliked by other elements. So it is a really interesting story with some deeper themes to it. Coming in at number 15 is Inside Out 2. The newest Pixar film took all of the great stuff about the first Inside Out and just expanded on it, introducing new emotions, which was appropriate for Riley at such a young age. She's going to feel anxious about things. She's going to be embarrassed. And it was the right direction to bring in these new elements. But the thing that holds Inside Out 2 from being perfect, there isn't a scene that made me feel emotional while watching in theaters. I can think of the first Inside Out and thinking about Bing Bong, but there wasn't that one scene in Inside Out 2. The animation is great once again. I like the voice acting in here. My Hawk is great as Anxiety, and it is the step in the right direction. I think they could do a couple more Inside Out films looking at Riley at different points in her life, and you feel like they wouldn't be running out of ideas. As you get older, you have different emotions, and so I'm very curious to see what they do in the future. But the second film, they introduced the emotions in the right way and had a really good pace to it. Coming in number 14 is Ratatouille. Ratatouille, I like it. It is a simple film about a rat that wants to cook and builds a relationship with a human. It's got a nice developing relationship between Remy and Linguini, and seeing the confidence build for Linguini throughout this movie was also a nice addition to the film. Beautiful animation. It made me hungry when watching this film. I want to try everything that this rat makes. Yes, I would try all the food that Remy makes. It's filled with love and passion, and that's so cool about this movie. Coming in at number 13 is WALL-E. WALL-E's pacing really helps out this movie as we introduce WALL-E and WALL-E's purpose in the beginning of the film without any dialogue. It's very sweet. It's very adorable. And then when you transition into Eve's introduction, the storyline starts to shift and adds more depth to the story and a whole new purpose for WALL-E. So there is a lot that is added on throughout this movie that is very welcomed and does grow Wall-E as a character. It's so thoughtful throughout this movie and tells a very endearing story looking at Wall-E and Eve. The movie's animation is very beautiful, looking at this desolate world and looking at space as well. There's so many cool things that Wall-E does introduce, but Wall-E is a very iconic Pixar character. Coming at number 12 is Onward. Onward has a very emotional end to the film, but the journey getting there is a lot of personality to it, and it does allow for the whole storyline involving these two characters that want to spend another day with their father. There is a lot of emotion behind all of that, and when you get to the end, it's very rewarding. Tom Holland and Chris Pratt do a great job voicing these brothers. They're very different, but throughout their journey, they come to an understanding. They share all their memories of their father, and it has such a great payoff at the end. It has a fun fantasy vibe to it, a fun fantasy journey that is very exciting and adds new elements along the way and shakes up their journey. It's a fun movie with a fun adventure, but a very rewarding emotional end. Coming at number 11 is Coco. Coco is also a very emotional Pixar film. A lot of these films that are up towards the top of the list are more of the emotional movies. Throughout the whole entire movie, there is a storyline of family where everything is not perfect, and it paints the family within Coco as very realistic. There are going to be secrets from this family. There is going to be moments where everybody's so loving with each other. There's going to be conflict as well, and Coco does a great job of just expanding on that. And Coco does a great job expanding on the theme of family, told in a beautiful story with a rewarding end. It all comes together to tell a very impactful, thoughtful story surrounding family and the importance of it all. And number 10 is Soul. Soul is one of the deepest Pixar movies. I think Inside Out and Soul are two of the ones that really challenge your thoughts about life and your purpose, and that's what Soul does exactly, and it does it so well, is makes you think about your own purpose and your time on earth, and how can you live up to that purpose, and what you think your main focus in life, your main purpose is, may not be what you're actually supposed to do. And that's so thoughtful in the process of it all, its execution, and watching Joe as he thinks that one thing might be his purpose, but he actually has something else, and watching that shift in this character, it's so meaningful. It adds some humor in here by Tina Fey, but the storyline is very deep, it's very mature, and I think that a younger audience may not be able to connect with this film and appreciate it as much as an adult, because the film is more mature and grounded than other Pixar movies, despite having some fluffy, adorable, humorous moments throughout. It still manages to push that more thoughtful, mature storyline throughout, with you looking at your own purpose and having connections to this film. It's a very deep film and a really strong movie. Coming in at number 9 is Incredibles 2. I like that this movie was able to maintain the overall tone from the first film. Yes, the villain side of it is very predictable, but the family unit is strong once again, and so much more for Jack to do, which is easily the highlight of this movie. But watching Elastigirl have a stronger storyline in here, and Bob Parr now be a stay-at-home father, they were able to shift up this story while also just maintaining that family unit. The characters are strong, likable once again. I like that it did continue off of that first film right away. Despite having some generic villains and predictable storylines, the family's focus is the strongest part of this movie, and watching them all come together. Introducing other superheroes within this movie was able to expand on the world in here, and looking at the climate of the superheroes within that storyline and seeing their progression and how the public views them is also a great minor plot within this movie. The humor's there, the action's there. It's a great superhero film. I wish the villain was a little bit stronger, but I really did like the family in here and how it was able to maintain its vibe. Coming in at number 8 is Inside Out. Inside Out is a very deep Pixar film, and looking at your different emotions within yourself, joy, sadness, anger, disgust, fear, everything we all feel. And looking at Riley, a young girl within this film, that's what she feels. And watching joy and sadness go on their own journey, fear, disgust, and anger really take control, and you need to balance out your emotions just to be able to live. And this film is so strategic in its storyline, in its introductions of our characters, and have them be placed throughout this movie and feel their importance. Even though joy and sadness are gone and separated from the other group, you have enough development for all the characters to feel like they do play an important role for Riley. It's a beautifully animated film, a very smart movie, one that I think a lot of people are able to connect with because we are able to relate to all of these emotions. As a teacher, we use these characters in our day-to-day routine and talk about our feelings and how we are able to set our day up successfully by looking at these emotions. It's literally posted on my door, and they point to their emotions as they come into school. So, Inside Out has played a big part for me as an educator, but also the film just is able to have children understand their emotions and how they are very important to who you are. And Inside Out was very smart with bringing this movie together. The animation's great. It's funny. It's very emotional with Bing Bong. Overall, one of the best Pixar movies. Coming in at number 7 is Up. Up started right away very emotional, and from there on you understood the whole purpose of this movie. You could watch Carl go on this journey that absolutely makes no sense, but you would absolutely stand by him because of the whole purpose of his journey. It's because of his wife that had passed away, and by all of that, I'm on board with everything. And even though it makes no sense, I still found it to be truly emotional and very personal. And I love the strong setup in the beginning and just the whole journey for him and how determined he is. He meets characters along the way that are fun, very loving, adorable, but the whole storyline is very meaningful. It's emotional throughout. I like Carl as a character and watching his happiness shine throughout this movie from being a grumpy old man and watching young Russell along for the journey, just being a ray of sunshine. It's sweet. It's a good Pixar movie and stands as one of the most emotional scenes in the beginning of any Pixar film, and just carrying on with that and understanding its purpose. Coming in at number 6 is Toy Story 2. The sequel to Toy Story is a lot of fun. And one thing I really remember about this movie growing up, and still today, I think it's very smart in the way that they were able to execute this movie, is having Buzz separated from Woody. And you get to see Buzz be like this leader to the toys at Andy's house. But then also you got to see Woody in his past and looking at his own identity, and separating them two was only able to strengthen these characters. Buzz was able to become more confident within himself, and then Woody was able to understand who he truly is. And by also doing that, you were introducing Bullseye and Jessie, and those are characters now that are staples in the Toy Story franchise. And so it's a lot of fun seeing these characters do their own thing, but when they come together, it's still once again very strong. There is enough development for both characters. The new additions added a lot to the story. It's got a good score to it, a lot of fun moments. I remember watching it a lot as a kid, and to this day, it's one of the best sequels. Coming in at number 5 is The Incredibles. I love the superhero vibe within this movie, and it has iconic scenes, and it just feels like a classic superhero story. A really over-the-top villain, a family that has to rise to the challenge, understanding your powers, all that's within this film. And the family unit is very strong in here. It feels like a typical family, but they do have superpowers. Looking at the average family lifestyle in here is able to give it a realistic feel to it, but then also looking at that superhero vibe to it is able to give it a fantasy feel to this film. The action's a lot of fun. The humor's there. Jack is iconic. Overall, The Incredibles is iconic to Pixar. When I think of Pixar, I mostly think of Toy Story, Nemo, Monsters Inc., and Incredibles. And they're all great for many reasons and why they stood the test of time when it comes to Pixar and all the new additions that Pixar has along the way. Coming in number 4 is Monsters Inc. I love that this film was able to understand the world set within Monsters Inc., looking at restaurants and jobs and where people live and how they get their power, the ins and outs. There's a lot of great world building in here, filled with two of the coolest Pixar characters, one of the best duos of Mike Wazowski and Sully. Two very polar opposite characters, but they have such great chemistry in here. They rely on each other at work, but then you introduce Boo, a human that really shakes up the storyline, but able to look at humans in a different way. As humans, to them, they are terrified of them. They don't want to be touched. They have to scare them to get their power. But when they have this young girl in here, it's able to bring a new side to the monsters and give them a new purpose. So Monsters Inc. was smart in the way that they were able to build this world outside of their job. The animation's great, looking at different doors that they go into, all the different styles to the monster. It really does pop and brings a lot of unique moments to this film. Coming at number 3 is Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo has a great storyline throughout. You have a purpose for Marlin as he's trying to find his son. He will travel to the end of the ocean if he has to find his son. And you have characters that are introduced along the way like Dory and Bruce and Crush, and they all feel iconic just even if they are brief. And then you have Nemo in this fish tank, and you see him grow as a character just within that fish tank. The score is really good. It's very calm throughout. The animation in the ocean is beautiful. The storyline is very personal. It's exciting at times. It's emotional. It's thrilling throughout. It's really got a lot that it does juggle, and it balances it so well. Finding Nemo has been out for a couple decades now, and it's still one of their best films in terms of its characters, its story, its animation. It really does it all. Coming in at number 2 is Toy Story, the film that started it all. Yes, the animation style has changed for Pixar drastically, but what makes this film so good still, even after so many years, is the characters and the story. We have Andy, who has new toys, Buzz and Woody, but watching these characters just learn to accept each other and be part of Andy's life, and they have to be there for Andy, is one that I just often love to revisit. It's a film that has natural growth for Buzz inside Andy's room, and watching Woody have to accept him. There's going to be some challenges along the way. It's still a story that everybody wants to revisit, and for a lot of great reasons. It's such a good animated film. Characters that you love, characters that you want to see develop throughout the movie. The animation, yes, has changed, but for when it was released, it was really good. I still love the storylines in each of the film and the characters' growth and how they become so iconic. And the first Pixar film started off on a very strong note, and to this day, it's one of the best animated films ever made. But coming in first place, Toy Story 3. I will stand by Toy Story 3 to the end of time. I absolutely love this movie. And the end of this film, I was truly emotional. I was like bawling my eyes out within this movie. But you feel like this movie is like it's coming to an end for Andy and Woody. And Andy's grown up. He no longer plays with the toys, and it's a very realistic story. You lose interest in the things that you were so interested in as a kid. The characters have meaningful storylines throughout. It has a villain, Lotso, that has a very emotional backstory, but there is a great development to this film that the end, you see it coming, and it's very rewarding. It's very emotional. It tugs on your heartstrings, and it just makes you feel everything that happened in the previous two films, and it comes to an end for them, and then makes you think about all the toys that you had as a kid. The emotions don't feel fake. The emotions don't feel like it's being forced at all. Everything feels very natural. Toy Story 3, I honestly don't think there will be something coming from Pixar that will be as good as Toy Story 3. If there is, I will be very surprised, and I will welcome that. But for now, Toy Story 3, it's my favorite Pixar movie. So there you guys have it, all 28 Pixar movies ranked worst to best. How would you rank them? Let me know in the comment section down below, and stay tuned for more up and coming content like this. My name is Just Watches Movies, and you guys stay classy, YouTube.